Hey everybody, welcome to Sunday Night Setup, prepping your week for love and light through leadership. My name is Jamika Thomas. I am the founder of JT Educates, and this is a weekly podcast that we do. It's about 15 minutes on Sunday night where we go over topics that help us lead in love and light. And so tonight we have a tricky one. This podcast is dealing with leading with courage. Leading with courage. And so let's define leading with courage. Leading with courage is standing by values, taking bold actions, and making tough decisions. Leading with courage or courage and leadership is standing by values, taking bold actions, and making tough decisions. Why do you think courage is essential in leadership today? I think courage is essential in leadership today because, it's a lot going on. It's a lot going on in these leadership streets, right? And so we have to find our values, we have to find our morals, and we have to stick to them. And oftentimes, when we have really tough decisions, it does take courage to stick to those values, especially when that decision might not be a popular decision, especially when this decision might cause some people to be uncomfortable, especially when this decision is going to make people kind of shift in what they're doing. Last week, we talked about leading through change. And oftentimes, when you are leading through courage or being a courageous leader, there is some shifting and some changing that has to happen. Sometimes you have to shift people out of the status quo, right? And when you do that, you realize that it takes courage because you're going to get some resistance, right? And this kind of leads back to what we were talking about last week about leading through change. And so, there is a fine line between bold decision making and restless risk. There is a fine line between bold decision making and restless risk. So let's talk about it. Bold decision making, you're basing it off of evidence, or you're basing it off of analysis, or you're basing it off of your training or what you know to be true or right in a particular decision. Restless, um, let me get it. Hold on one second. Restless risk, I apologize. Restless risk is just doing things just to do it, right? Oh, whichever way the wind blows, that's what we're going to do. And that's hard leadership to follow, right? I've been under a leader where they wanted to make bold moves and they wanted to make um bold change, but because it wasn't rooted in um, transparency or decision making that was rooted in evidence, it just seemed like the thing to do. It's kind of like we were just kind of flowing here or there, right? It was just, oh, today we're doing this, tomorrow, oh no, I talked to somebody else and we're doing this, and then next week, oh no, we're going back to this, and then nobody's really communicating, and so it can tend to be hard. And so when you are in a courageous leader, you have to not only make the bold moves, but you also have to communicate those moves to the right people along the way, right? You don't want to make a bold move and lead in courage and be out there by yourself, right? We cannot be you cannot be in the boat and we pushing the boat. We're not in the boat with you rowing the boat. We're pushing your boat, right? Because you made a bold move that we weren't there wasn't a lot of communication. And so we have to think about leading courageously is great, and also, you have to communicate those decisions. Okay. And so, when we're thinking about leading courageously, it can often, you have to have that evidence, and some ways to do that is by doing a SWOT analysis. You're really looking at all possible ways of doing something. You can also do scenario planning. So if you have these different scenarios of, this is what I want to do, I want to increase my business, I want to have my team to have better morale. We noticed that a certain department of ours doesn't have the best customer service. So, what type of bold changes, what type of courageous leadership do I have to have in order to make changes with this department or with these bold moves? And so, when you're thinking about that leadership courage or that courageous leadership, all of those things are very important. You can't just make a bold move. You have to communicate along the way, and you have to have evidence, right? You have to have some type of analysis. And there are different ways, you can kind of Google the different types of analysis there are. And also, you have to maybe also do scenario planning. So, just thinking about what are the different scenarios that can happen if we make certain changes. So when we're thinking about steps, and I always like to give you practical steps, there are three that I want to give you. Create a culture of psychological safety where team members feel empowered to take risks. We've talked about creating a culture of safety, creating a culture where your team members are not afraid to fail. If you create this culture of safety where they're not afraid to fail, where they feel like they can fail forward, then when you start making bold moves, they know that you have a safety net there for them if they mess up, or if they don't catch on as quickly, or if there is a little resistance to change, there's enough trust there that they know that even if it's taken me a little while to change all the way, my supervisor, my boss has my back, right? As a leader, your employees or your shift or your department well enough to know their heart. And so you're able to understand that this is a bold move that we're about to do. And so, because this is a bold move that we're about to do, I know it's going to be some sticking points for you. And because there's some sticking points for you, let's go ahead and address those, right? It makes me think about when I led a team. There are a lot of strong personalities on that team. I loved each one of them, but they each brought something different. And I knew that my leadership style was different for some of them. And I am a very, okay, let's throw everything to the wall and make sense out of it. And then I had people on my team who was very, no, I need an A, a B, a C, a D, a E, and F. And I'm like, oh, throw all the letters on the wall and let's make it make sense. And so when we started to make changes and different things of in the department or the task that we were asked to do, I had to make sure that I was communicating along the way. And I had to make sure that everybody had buy-in to the change that we were making. And so that courage to be transparent, that courage to drop down and be humble and not say this is how we're doing it because I'm the leader, allowed an ease for the courageous leadership that I had. Um, Also thinking about leading by example, showing vulnerability and decisiveness. There's another way for us to lead by or be courageous leaders is leading by example. You have to show how you're leading courageously. You also can be transparent when you don't feel as courageous. And you have to think about, y'all, I'm kind of nervous about this meeting. I'm a little bit nervous about this presentation. I know we're going to present some things that are going to some people are going to accept and they're not. And I'm actually communicating that to my team. And so by doing that and communicating that to my team, it showed them how I pushed through. One of my favorite digital mentors, I have digital mentors. One of my favorite digital mentors, he says, if you can't do it brave, do it scared. That is his motto. If you can't do it brave, do it scared. And so, if you are a courageous leader, you have to know that there are going to be some times that you're not brave and you're scared. You're scared to make that bold move. You're scared to make that decision. You know that there's going to be resistance. You know that that you're going to have to build capacity of your team to handle this move or to handle this change. And so you are a little, afraid, intimidated, like all the words. And so what do we have to do? If we can't do it brave and we know this is the right thing for us to do, we have to do it scared. So we just step out. We step out on water. We make a decision. We communicate along the way. We make sure that we give room and space for people who are resisting or having a hard time buying in. You give them space for it, and then you move forward because you know that this is the right move or the right change. The last thing is encouraging open dialogue, innovation, and accountability. So, again, encouraging that open dialogue. Last week we talked about open forum, giving people a space and a place to even push back to your bold move. It's not going to hurt you, right? It might hurt your ego a little bit. You might kind of get a little bit intimidated when you don't have everybody just jumping on board. But we as leaders have to expect that everybody's not going to like all of our decisions. They're not. It's human. As my grandfather would say, folks is folks. He says it. Folks is folks, wherever you go. Meaning that you're going to have people who are going to disagree. You're going to have people who are going to not jump on board at all the time. Like that's going to happen. But you still have to, after you have looked at the evidence, after you have looked at your analysis, if this bold move is still the best move, you have to go ahead and do it. If you can't do it brave, you have to do it scared. So let's just recap. This is a short pod that we're doing this week. So let's just recap. We have to think about the role of courage and leadership. Like, you can't be a leader that's not courageous. Leadership can also be lonely at times. No matter how much community you build, that leadership can be lonely. And you have to still go out and do the courageous thing. Um, you have to know how to take calculated risk, not reckless risk, but calculated risk. You have figured out if something goes wrong, if there's a gap, if somebody doesn't do what they're supposed to do, how can we still get this done? Right? And then you have to foster courage in your teams. So not only do you have to have courage, you have to foster courage in your teams. All right. So I always like to leave you with a challenge. So this is the challenge. Think of one bold action this week that you can take in your leadership role. Think about one bold action you can take this week in your leadership role. All right, that's it. We're going to be courageous this week. We're going to give people a chance to be courageous with us. We're going to lead and we're going to communicate. We're going to make sure we have done an analysis and gotten evidence for this bold move that we're making, and we're going to do it. And we're not just going to do it brave. If we can't do it brave, we're going to do it scared. All right, that's it. This is Jamaica Thomas with JT Educates. And this is the Sunday night setup where we are prepping your week for love and light through leadership. Remember, I want you to be light, be love, and lead boldly this week. Be light, be love, and lead boldly. Have a good night.